thanks so much for coming on today. We're really big
Of
fans of your
course.
we're big fans of your work, and like
Huge
I said, we've
fan.
been following your Instagram page, and everything you're doing is just so awesome. Being a dad, and just we see all the podcasts you have as well. So many cool things. We'll get into all that today.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
And fans of you guys. I mean, I keep up with the Instagram accounts and all that, and everyone seems to be crushing it over there.
Thanks,
yeah,
man.
Mike's
Appreciate it.
Mike's the owner. Yeah, it's he's on a go. Oh yeah, I just realized you guys have the same shirts you guys are wearing.
Yeah,
Thank you
I
very
Yeah,
much.
know.
yeah,
That's
you
why I
guys
said
sent me the
nice
shirt.
shirt. I was like,
I'm a team player, man. I'm
I
a
just
team
realized
player.
yeah, I
Mike's wearing
really
the exact
appreciate
same one.
that, man.
That's so cool.
I even like threw it in the wash and dried it a little bit because it softens it up. I like a new shirt like that. So no, this is already good to go.
First off, let's just talk about the 20th anniversary of Entourage because obviously me and Mike were big fans of the show, and it's just crazy to think 20 years went by and that people are still loving it to this day. Just because many things, it was wild, it was funny, it was just a crazy peek into Hollywood life. From like all the nonstop parties, the drama, everything between the bond of Vince and the crew. I think it made for such a relatable show, but also a show that people can watch and kind of have an escape from like
Yeah.
the real world because it is obviously a really dramatic view of Hollywood. But in your opinion, why do you think audience to this day are still talking about this show and why they love it so much?
And again, thank you guys for having me on. This is really, really cool. You don't, at least for me, I have never reflected back on Entourage until around now, until the 20-year anniversary, right? Because when you're doing it, you know, first of all, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of everyone thinks Entourage was always like this big party, which it was, but there's a lot of 15, 17-hour days, Friday nights going into Saturday morning. It was a lot of work. Not complaining. We loved it. But when you're in the moment, you just want it to keep going. You want it to be good. You want the product to be good. So you're not looking back saying, like, oh man, people love this show. This is awesome, right? You just want to keep it going. But now, all these years later, I look back on it. And to me, all right, I'll try not to make this too long. But if you go back to 2004, when we started airing, still only like a few years removed from like 9/11, and like definitely things in the country were tough. And I just felt like we came along as this half-hour breezy comedy, and people would watch on Sundays and just forget about stuff for a minute or 30 minutes and lock in. That's number one. Number two, it really was a show about friendship, male friendship, but friendship in general. And when you guys, I mean, you guys are young guys, so you probably have a version of this. Wouldn't you like to have your friends around at all times, ready to just, it doesn't always have to be a party. It could be go to breakfast, go to lunch. Hey, your boy's going to barbecue. Great. Like it was just about the hang. And the things we always worried about were, will people outside of LA and New York care about the Hollywood stuff, right? We feel like LA would love it. New York maybe would be a trip, but will people in Chicago or Atlanta or Ohio, wherever, would they care about like the ups and downs of a movie star? And sure enough, those people cared more than New York and LA. They found it interesting and fascinating and related it to their own business, or maybe got them into the business. So now cut to all these years later, what are younger people seeing? I think the same things, but also now there's like a historical time capsule element. Like, oh, these dudes had flip phones. Now they got Blackberries. Oh, there's the first iPhone. Damn, that's what a Maserati looked like back then. There's all these historical references. We're making Britney Spears jokes, which we're still kind of doing all these years later. So yeah, I find a lot more than anything, a lot more younger people are coming up to me these days wanting to talk Entourage.
Like when I was just watching that Sopranos documentary and they were showing behind the scenes of all the work that went into
Yeah, it was
it. It was like,
incredible.
yeah, it was just like you said, there's more to meets the eye to this stuff. So it's interesting you said that too, because I was just watching that like a week ago, you know?
Yeah, look, again, not complaining like, oh, this is so hard. But there was this, especially early on before we were considered like a successful show. What does being a successful show mean? It means HBO gives you more money to shoot your show. Money in television means you have more time, you have more days. So when we started off, we would shoot one episode in 5 days, a Monday through a Friday, which is insane. It's an insane amount of work. We weren't on a studio lot. Everything you saw, we were at the real place. So if we started at Earth Cafe in Hollywood and then we're going to some club in Santa Monica. Our whole company is moving. That takes like 3 hours.
Oh my god.
So yeah, it was a lot of work, but man, it was fun. Like, and again, we became such good friends in real life. So now you're getting to work with people who you want to spend your free time with. And I think that's when you're really winning in life.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And there's so many like funny episodes. It's hard to say what my favorite ones are, but if I had to pinpoint a few of them, I would say definitely the day effers, or I don't want to swear, but like the day effers where you wore the pink bunny costume, which dude, I don't even know
Yeah.
how that must have been just so funny just to wear that and thinking like all the people there going like laughing at you wearing it, but it must have been funny. And then also the Sundance Kids, Turtle and Drama's threesome, that was hilarious. Uh, I feel like Turtle and Drama always had their like it was always them two that got into these like wacky situations. Even with the Dog Day Afternoon episode where you guys were
Yeah.
picking women at the dog park,
Yeah.
which actually featured Busy Phillips actually.
Yes.
Funny enough, I was reading online about it. I don't know if you saw this or maybe you did, that she was on the show, but then she ended up saying that she didn't like the show after. But she said that you were the sweetest out of the bunch. I don't know if you read about
I
that.
did not. You might have to send me that because I loved
Yeah,
working with her. She was hilarious on the show.
yeah.
I believe she might have auditioned, but all I remember is, or she went on tape or something, but it was so instant. Like the minute she put herself on tape or however she read for it, it's like, oh, that's like one of the funniest actors we've seen in a long time. It's a bummer if she didn't like the show, but look, yeah, you don't have to like I've done, stuff where it's like, all right, it's not that I don't like it. Maybe I just don't watch it. But I always try to make the decisions of work for me with my career. My first thing, I always judge anything. And it's not like I get tons of offers, but like, would I watch this? That's always step one for me, whether it's a movie, TV show. So she was fun, man. Look, Kevin Dillon, let's speak on him for a minute. Johnny Drama, right? Everyone was most worried about him and I when the show first started because there's a big age gap between us. I think he's like 16 or 17 years older than me.
Yeah.
So like when we started, I was 23, he was 40. And we always made the old jokes with him, but people were worried, like, and I looked really young. Could they believe that we were like in high school at the same time? I almost didn't get the part because of that.
Wow.
And because he was so good, they knew they were casting him. No, not one person in the 10 years Entourage was around that ever said, like, I never bought the relationship because of the ages. And then sure enough, it just so happened that like he was so good, all these like sort of I would call them side quests. Like if you play video games, right? You get these side quests. Him and I were always in these side quest episodes, which ended up being the funniest shit because he's friggin' hilarious. I had a front row seat to like watching the guy just hit home runs every single day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it
He
is
just was a
awesome.
killer. He was a killer.
Yeah, I was even watching the Entourage movie again, and at the end he wins the award. I'm like, he had to get up and give a speech, and I was like, victory is the perfect answer to end and ended the
Bro,
movie on it and stuff. I'm like, it's the best answer. He's
I
great.
was just with those guys. We were talking off the air. I was just with those guys at Derek Jeter's charity event, Turn Two Foundation, and Kevin Dillon won something at the event that he like bid on, and the crowd went nuts. And he did the victory. Like he's still playing the hits, and people still love it. Still love it.
That's
That's
so cool,
awesome.
man. Well, yeah, you know,
Yep.
I have an older brother, so I know what it's like the dynamic. He's 10 years older than me, my brother.
Yeah.
So like I understand like the banter between, you and him because I've been through that. I've been
Right.
through the side quest, quote unquote.
Yeah. And that's really what we were trying to do with the show all those years. Now, here's the funny part, right? Everyone talks about like chemistry. Oh, you guys have such chemistry. It looks like you're really friends on the show, and we really were friends in real life. But with acting and television and movies, it's the secret sauce. It's the lightning in the bottle. You can't predict it. You could cast people and say, oh, they're friends in real life. They'll have a lot of chemistry, and it's not there. I've seen good friends off camera have zero chemistry on camera. I've seen complete strangers in life have amazing chemistry on. So it's just that's the magic that when you get a good script and good actors, but you forget that chemistry, even with romantic comedies, you see it all the time with men and women in rom-coms. It's the secret stuff that makes it unbelievable.
Is that why in Hollywood too because it always seems like there's a bunch of Italian actors always doing stuff together. DiCaprio and Scorsese. I feel like Sebastian
Mhm.
Maniscalco's even in the mix now. What do you know?
Yeah.
Do you have any context? Is that are they like a click off camera just as much as on camera too, or do you have any experiences with any of them?
Well, look, from I won't even say I don't have firsthand experience, but just like reading the room, as far as like with like DiCaprio and Scorsese, I don't know if it's the link of being Italian or whatever. I just think that there's just a great respect for each other. Now, the guy you really should talk to because he's just worked with Scorsese, is my good buddy. I don't know if you talked to Dom Lombardozzi,
Not
who's
yet,
on
not
Oh
yet,
Entourage as
but
well.
yeah,
Dom, you guys should definitely talk to Dom.
yeah,
He was in The Irishman, and
yeah. He's cool.
he's
he was in
he's
Boardwalk
cool.
Empire as well too. Yeah.
Boardwalk. He's just one of the best actors around. He's always now he's on Tulsa King with Stallone,
Yes, yeah.
He's in
and
everything. He's in everything, man. And I
he's in
follow his Instagram
everything.
too. He's
And
like making sauce and like showing the acid boiling
he-
or something. Yeah, he's
right.
Yeah,
Italian for
and
Oh
kids
my,
too.
that
Jerry
guy.
also. Well, Jerry, was he also in? He was in A Bronx Tale, wasn't he too? Was that him in that?
His first part ever. And again, you guys should have him on because he's a fascinating story and he's the one of the greatest guys ever.
Yeah,
But yeah, he went to like an open call in New York for Bronx Tale, and De Niro, who directed that, and cast him as Nicky Zero and sort of launched his career. And then a few years after that, he's on The Wire. He's on The Wire. I had the chance to work with De Niro too. And I even tried asking him about that. He's like, oh, yeah, we knew it. Like Dom, the minute he came in, like this kid's natural. He's a
Yeah.
natural. And he was. He was right.
yeah. Wait, so wait, did De Niro said that you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah. I worked with De Niro on a movie called Las Vegas, which was a thrill for me because obviously, you grow up an Italian kid from Brooklyn, you love De Niro. I think I watched Goodfellas when I was like 10 years old. My mom didn't know, probably shouldn't have done that. But yeah, I was so intimidated to work with it. Well, also in that movie was Morgan Freeman, Michael Douglas, Kevin Kline, Mary Steenburgen. So I was intimidated already. I think those guys realize, oh, an Italian kid from Brooklyn they brought me over. They like started asking me questions, made me comfortable. And yeah, I started talking to him about Dom. And he cast Dom, first guy. That's a great career start when De Niro is the first person to cast you in the movie.
Absolutely, yeah. Bronx was one of those movies too. Just to touch on that a bit, because I know Lilo Brancato, who he's
Yep.
adopted, he's Italian by adoption, but
Mhm.
just to know about that whole thing about the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. That and the fact that he ended up, I'm good friends with Lilo now, so if you're watching Lilo, how's it going? But he's one of those guys who really turned his life around, but
Yeah.
was a product of that.
Yeah.
Oh, saddest thing, my wasted
I
talent.
feel like we've crossed. Yeah, I like way back in the day. I might have been in a few, but even it might have even been before I was acting. I've seen Lilo, but yeah, also too to be that young, like he was the star of the movie. To be that young star, De
Yeah.
Niro hand picks you. It's just
At the
it's a
beach.
lot for
At the
young
beach
people,
too, he
man.
picked him up.
Yeah, it's just a lot because I was really 23 when I kind of caught my break, so a little bit older but still young. It's so easy to get caught up, man. I see it's so easy for and that's not just with acting, it's with anything. You become successful, people think you're the shit, you start making money. It's so easy to think that this is how it's going to be forever.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
it's just not.
I
It's
know.
not real life.
I want to ask you too, because one of the biggest things I want to commend you on is just the switch from Entourage to something like Power, where the roles are completely different from being goofy to like super serious and in a drama. Can you tell me a little bit about what that's like working on the different sets and just kind of how is that easy to switch on and switch off, or is that?
I have such a like soft spot for Power. I really do think like I love Entourage. Entourage is like that's who I am at this point. It made me. That's the reason why we're talking, right? But like Power to me, I just always I wanted to do drama. Like when I first started, not that I thought I was going to be like Robert De Niro or some shit, but I grew up watching Goodfellas and Godfather, and The Sopranos kicks off, and I see that, and I think I'm like this dramatic actor. But it turned out when I was younger, I looked really young and innocent, and I guess I was kind of funny, so I get cast in all these comedies. And then once you do that, it becomes really hard to get cast in the drama because everyone just sees you and immediately wants to laugh. But it really was Courtney Kent who created Power, who I had met with about a different part in Power and it didn't work out. But she said something that I'd heard hundreds of times in Hollywood. She's the only one who actually did it. She said, all right, it's a bummer this role is not going to work out, but I know there's more to you than meets the eye. And I'm going to write something for you. And it's going to be dark and it's going to be, it's going to lean into a little bit more of your upbringing, you know? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Great. Call me. I'll wait anxiously by the phone for your call. You ain't going to call. And like a year and a half later, she called. I wrote this part. Joe Proctor, secretly Italian, changed his name. He's a criminal defense attorney, but he's dirty. He gets his hands dirty. Do you want to do this? I'm like, yes, let's go. And it brought me back to New York. And I just had the best time, dude. I'm putting on these suits. I had to learn some of the legal banter, but I remember growing up, where I grew up, like, there was definitely mob elements where I grew up, and with like John Gotti and like his attorney was Bruce Cutler. And I remember he was the one who there was always these videos of him in the courtroom. And it was like theater. This dude would give these monologues about why John Gotti didn't do these crimes. Yeah. I'm just like, I got to borrow some of that because that dude, when he was doing his job as a defense attorney, it was like theater. So, and then to answer your question, Michael, right? So, okay, now I'm doing a drama. So now people start casting me in dramas. Oh, Ferrara. So a few years after Power is like winding down, and I have a meeting with a director about a comedy, and they ask, oh, can Jerry do comedy? So like, wow, we're really prisoner of the moment. So it went from, I did comedy. Can he do drama? Then I do a drama for 6 years. Wait, can he do comedy?
Oh my God.
That's kind of how Hollywood goes, right? Like your last job is really the thing that you're remembered by.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah. And honestly, on Power too, it's cool that you got to work alongside 50 Cent, who obviously we all know a legend in the music industry. But behind the scenes, did you ever get to did you ever get to speak with him about just things that maybe people don't know about? You got to learn some things about him and any advice or anything that he talked about?
We had an interesting history, 50 and I. 50 was in Entourage, right?
Yeah.
And it was like a last minute cameo. And, he agreed to do it. We reached out. He agreed to do it. We're all excited. But the scene was the same, right? Like I roll up in, I guess, the Porsche or the Ferrari, whatever. And he comes and makes fun of me. But he said before he came out, he's like, I'm going to ship out one of my cars. It's like 50. We got cars here, man. We got Aston Martin. He's like, no. I'll fly out there and I'll ship one of my cars. So he flew out to LA and shipped his own car. So that car you see him on screen, which also that's one of the most famous memes, I think, in the history of memes, is him laughing at me. We pull it up, drives away smiling. That's always on Twitter.
The smile,
That's used 1,000 times a day, but that was his car. He shipped out his own car. So got to know him with that. Then that movie Las Vegas with De Niro, I mentioned, he's in that movie as well.
Okay.
And then Power comes along, and I can't say like there was like, crazy story, but all I'll say is just getting to know him. It's just, he's so smart and focused and determined and just knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's like everything he says on Instagram, all these like wild things he posts, but like all his plans, like he's really doing that shit. And I honestly got a lot of respect for that dude and what him and Courtney built with Power. And he's always been very, very complimentary of me and inclusive. And I don't know, man. I feel like I owe him a lot, but we just had we're always in each other's orbits. It's been like a weird thing.
Well, you guys are very similar though. He's obviously a businessman and entrepreneur, much like yourself. You know what I mean? So yeah. I guess there's also, that kind of that connection too between him and yourself.
Yeah, he's just doing it on a high level. Like he's high level, man. He's high level. I've acted with him in 3 different projects, so I don't think many people could say that.
Also, too, Jerry, with talking about how I mentioned about if there's any crazy stories of 50 Cent. I know Entourage, obviously, it's loosely based on Mark Wahlberg's life and his entourage, right? Now, when you got to speak with Mark Wahlberg at different points, did he ever mention did he ever go to you and say like, you know what, this show is crazy how it is, like these stories and these parties, whatever. But the real life Entourage was even crazier. Did he ever give you any like crazy
Well,
insights about that?
I think the initial concept for Entourage was a reality show. I think it was going to be like cameras following like Mark's boys, right? And then they figured that wasn't a great idea. So they decided to do the scripted version. Here's what Mark did that was really, really smart early on. We had shot the pilot, and now there's always this long waiting period, especially back then with HBO. You shoot your pilot, and then HBO watches all their pilots, and they don't make every show. They decide. So we film the first episode, and they decide which one they're going to send to series. That's almost like getting the part again. Like you get the part, you shoot the pilot, and then I go work back in the restaurant because that show's not picked up yet. I'm not making any money. Then they pick us up, and we get calls one day. It's like he's like, yeah, Mark's gonna fly you guys to Vegas to fight an HBO fight. I think it was like Roy Jones Tarver or something. And you guys are gonna fly private. So meet him at Burbank Airport at 6 o'clock. Here's the tail number. I'm 23 years old. I'm like, first of all, I didn't know there was an airport in Burbank. Like, I only thought it was LAX. Number two, what's a tail number? I don't know how to fly private. I never even flew first class. I was coach JetBlue Tower Air back then. So I show up at the airport. It's this private air. And then, Dylan rolls up, Connolly, Adrian, and it's Mark and some of his friends. And we take that 45-minute flight to Vegas. And you just saw how he operated. Like, car picking him up. Like, we're in one part of the hotel. He's staying a lot higher up than we are. We go to the fight, afterwards we go out for a little bit, but then you turn around and it's like, oh, Mark's already gone. You didn't even see him leave. He like slips out you just saw just how, organized it was, but it was with his friends doing it, and that's what I thought was really cool. And we left that weekend and we were like, okay, we know how to do this. We think we know how to portray a little bit of that. And we did, and even think about back then, you go 20 years ago, it just was
True.
It just was different times too. Like, we're still, I don't even know if I had a cell. I think I just got like a Nextel or something. You guys are too young to remember that. It just was all different, and you couldn't just text someone and be like, oh, Mark's going to be here in 20 minutes. Like, it was a lot more hands-on back then.
Yeah,
True.
and even like now, like to this day, 20 years later, do you still keep in touch with Mark Wahlberg? Like, do you ever, is there any talks about maybe a potential reboot or anything? Because I think what me and Mike really found interesting about you and your character is that Turtle went through this big dramatic change.
Mm-hmm.
He went from this slacker guy, lazy stoner, and became like a businessman. We're good, Mark Cuban in the show, right? And everything, which is obviously so cool. But like, where if there was a reboot, where would you think like what would Turtle be up to in this day and age with social media and like just how would that be, you think?
It's a great question. And I do keep up with Mark, these days, and he's got, I think he's got 4 kids. I got 2 kids now. You guys are young, right? And enjoy your youth. When it gets old, when you get older, it's like it's just harder to see everybody because like you have these other responsibilities now. Life is no longer about you. Life is about your family. I come last and I make sure I keep it that way because that's how I want it.
Yeah.
My wife and kids come first, and then if I get a chance, I'll eat last, whatever. So, but I always Mark has a great charity of his own that I always go support, whether it's like golf charities or whatever. But the reboot question. So I never allow myself to really think about this stuff until this year because it's 20 years. All right, first things first. Vince was the engine behind the show, right? Like the career stuff. That was always the drive of the show. So what do you do with Vince? Well, I'm sure Doug Allen could come up with something. I tried thinking, we can't do is the movie gonna open? Like, people don't go to movies anymore, really, which is sad. I love going to movies.
Yeah.
So maybe with that, it's more about, hey, we got to reach out to some creators, some TikTokers, some YouTube people, and figure out a new way to promote this movie to get people to show up. I think drama, probably you could still run out some of the old hits with him and it'll still work. He definitely has like 9 kids with Sloan, probably.
Yeah.
most likely. So brings us to Turtle, right? And you could say maybe he had the biggest glow up, but I also think he had the most room to grow because he started so far behind everybody else emotionally, financially, motivationally. And in the end, he finished out. He definitely lost his money, right? Did Turtle keep all those? Come on.
I don't
You don't
know.
think Turtle got involved in some NFT or some meme coin that didn't work out? You don't think he
I
got
always thought maybe
fleeced a little?
I thought maybe he became like a Dave Portnoy almost, where it's like, maybe he became like that.
Possible. Look,
But
I think those are the two versions. I think Turtle either became some kind of like a media conglomerate or now he's like a billionaire or he's flat on his ass, lost everything, and he's starting back over.
that's
Yeah,
really
it's a
interesting
good
to think
point.
about.
It's a
Yeah,
good
I
insight,
never thought
Tyler.
about going behind.
Because if you remember, true fans of the show, yes, Turtle was right with the tequila. And also think back about this. And that's something I really do love about it. Whether you love Entourage or it's not for you, like busy, whatever, it's all good. But a lot of movies that the Vince character did have become real movies. Aquaman, Ferrari,
Yeah.
Medellin, arguable. I'm not saying like they stole anything, but like Narcos, right? There's a lot of Gatsby. There's a lot of
Yeah.
similarities there. Number two, celebrity branded alcohol companies. Nobody was doing that back in 2009. Wahlberg, Clooney, nobody owned a tequila company back then. Maybe I think 50 was one of the first people really with like vitamin water. If you recall that
Oh
story,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
50 was really one of the first who wasn't like an athlete. Athletes have been obviously doing branded like health drinks, but in terms of like switching it up, nobody was doing that. So we
Mhm.
kind of did that. We kind of did that first. I don't remember where I was going with all this, but yeah, like that, we called a lot of things that ended up coming up.
Yeah, no, you're right. Everything, literally all the movies, the brands. That's
Everybody got a
awesome.
tequila company now,
Yeah, literally.
except me. Except me.
Except the real, yeah, except for Jerry Ferrara. Turtle did,
except
but Jerry
me.
no.
I'm the only one who didn't get a real tequila company.
Yeah, but
Oh.
Jerry, I want to talk a little bit more about the Italian side of you too, man. So where's your family
Mm-hmm.
from in Italy?
Yeah.
You have kids now. Like, I know, like you said, you're not in New York anymore. How do you keep in touch with your roots? Do you teach anything to your kids about being Italian? Like, where does that, connection?
So yeah, I believe between my mom and my dad, it's a split of like Naples and Calabria, right? So Napolitan and Calabrese, I think.
That's
If I
cool.
got that right,
We're
mom, I'm sure
Calabrese
you're
too.
listening. Right. If I'm
Calabrese.
incorrect, please tweet at us or like write in the comments. I might be pretty sure I remember correct. And then yeah, most of my grandparents were born here. I think maybe two of my four grandparents might have been born in Italy, or maybe but great grandparents who were here, they didn't speak a word of English. And then I grew up in in like Bensonhurst, Dyker Heights part of Brooklyn, New York, which was a great place to grow up. Heavy Italian American culture. And yeah, man, it's hard. Like I said, it's hard to keep up with anyone. My wife is half Italian. A lot of, we're here in like Ohio. There's a lot of Italians here too. And I don't know, how do I kind of do it? Look, we try to do Sunday dinner, right? That was
Mhm.
something that was always big in my house. My wife grew up very similar to me, where I would just wake up on a Saturday morning and cross the street, go to my cousin's house, and then we'd play. And then I go up the block, and my grandmother lived there, and I'd stop in there and grab a meatball and go out and play. And our kids kind of have a little bit of that with their cousins. Like we just always at each other's house. And I know a lot of other cultures, it's not exclusive to Italian culture, but we just grew up very close. And you were like, we didn't have nannies and babysitters. It was my grandmother or my Aunt Celeste or my Aunt Pat, and everyone just helped each other like that.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what we have going on with our kids too. I mean, we have babysitters now because it's just it's just a little easier. But yeah, that's kind of how
Yeah.
we do it.
Yeah, well, like you even said too, like you said you consider yourself last in the family and this and that. That's definitely
Yeah.
how it was, with my Italian grandparents and parents. Like they don't care about themselves at all. It's all about their kids and the family. So I definitely catch that. Like, you know, you
I
have the
definitely look
perspective.
back on the way I grew up though, and there was a lot of us in the family, you know, cousins and all that, and just you know, the commitment to family, and we all do it too. But you know, we're now it's a little bit trickier because there's such a balance of work and career and commitment to family. And I picked a career that's, you know, I'm gone a lot, but uh, yeah, just back then, I mean, so my grandmother, I don't know, they're just the commitment to raising us together.
Hmm.
That's just my fondest memories growing up.
Yeah, 100%. No, I respect that a lot that you're so family focused, man, because I know a lot of people get, you know, a tenth of the success that you've gotten, and like it gets to their head and they don't care, like they don't care about family or nothing like that. You know what I mean? It's like they get conceited with
Yeah,
it fast. So like you've had a successful career and you're
you
still
know,
like
yeah,
all about family, man.
I lost my dad at a young age. You know, my dad passed when I was 5. I think my brother was 8 or 9, and I kind of always knew, even when I was young, like whenever I have kids, it it's just gonna be what life is about.
Hmm.
You know, I'm talking like I remember this at like 8, 9 years old, thinking that because I saw a lot of my friends, you know, and I always thought it was cool. I'm like, man, you know, your mom's around and your dad's around. And sometimes I was like, wow, it kind of sucks for you because you got two parents on your ass. I only got to deal with my mom. You got your mom, then you got your dad coming home. But yeah, man, look, it's I think it's the best thing I'll ever do is being a dad.
Wow.
Absolutely, yeah. And even just about like the you mentioned about the Sunday dinners and stuff, which obviously as an Italian, that's like it's a staple. You sit down with your family on a Sunday and but now you're a very health conscious person, right? So like what are your Sunday dinners looking like now? I mean, like it's not about the carbs much anymore, I'm guessing. Like how does your mom react like your and your family like, that if you don't eat the typical, mangia na ano pasta. Like what are they saying now like when you do it?
So listen, I am still health conscious ish. You know, since having kids, I put on a few pounds. I'm a little more dad bod than like this like ripped guy. Before kids, all I did was just work out and eat right. Like it's just so easy. But the one thing I regret, I do wish, and I say this to any, you didn't have to be just, you know, Italian to hear this, but especially if you got the, you know, if your grandmother's up there in age and she's the one Sunday's taking chart, pay attention a little more. Learn how to do it. Because, you know, maybe you're 19 years old and you don't cook and you're looking at, oh, my grandmother makes the best. Yes, true. And eat all that. Pay attention. Make sure she writes it down. Get the recipe, but make sure she writes it down. Make sure there's sauce on the paper when you're
Yeah.
out making it. Like you want the gravy stains on there. Because I have a few recipes from my grandparents and I cook now a lot more, but I wish I just paid more attention to my grandparents in the kitchen. You know, the fried meatballs, the baked ziti, all it just taste. I could never make it taste like they did.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a
Well,
secret ingredient, or maybe it was just their spirit and their love, or maybe I'm forgetting something. But
I think
yeah, so write the
they
shit down. Pay attention to your grandparents.
Yeah, well, they say it's hard too because Italians they just like sprinkle in dashes that they don't measure
Oh, there's
anything.
no
It's not
yeah,
like
there's no real recipe. It's like, no, how do you do this? How do you know? Ano po ka this? Okay, so
yeah.
how do you do it?
My mom's kind of like that now. If I'll call and ask her, like, Mom, when you make the whatever, like, what do you should put? She's like, I kind of, I don't know. I grab a little, I just throw it in. I'm like, that's not really a measurement, Mom.
Mhm.
Like just
Yeah,
grabbing a little bit of a handful of salt and going like this isn't. That's not really a measurement metric.
that's too funny, man.
Yeah, man.
Side note too, side note just before Sundays are also for The Sopranos. I don't know if you know Jerry. Yeah.
Oh, Satriales. Yeah, man. What a show. I'm on my yearly, every year I rewatch that show.
Same here.
And I'm a big decision in my life years ago. I moved to LA when I was 19 and Sopranos, obviously, I think they were like going into season 2, maybe something like that. And obviously, you grew up an Italian kid in New York or Jersey or wherever. It's like, oh my God, they're talking about us. I had an audition for the Sopranos, but
No.
but it was like I was already set to leave to move to LA. I was moving to LA, say on a Thursday, had my ticket booked, which cost a lot of money back then. Bags packed. My mom already cried. And I got this call like, oh, could you come in next week? for this like small part, and I had to make a decision. Back then, like canceling the plane ticket, you're not just going on your phone and be like, hey, let me switch in the United app. You're like on the phone. It costs hundreds of dollars to switch, which I didn't have. So I didn't go. I just moved to LA. I didn't go on the audition. And if memory serves me correct, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe David Chase will listen to this and call bullshit. I doubt he'll listen to this. No offense, fellas. I think it was for Jackie Jr.
No, are you serious?
But if you remember, Jackie Jr. and by the way, Jason Sorbonne, who got the part, awesome, phenomenal.
My father.
He was in season 2 with Uncle Richie, but kind of smaller. It wasn't like a big part. He was like seen holding the umbrella. Like my father would have got. My uncle just wants what my father would have gave him.
Out of respect to my father.
It was like that. Like, I don't think at that point it was known like, hey, this is going to go on to the season 3 arc with Meadow and all this stuff, which is one of my favorite seasons because of how it put Tony in this position where his work life and his family life crossed into each other. And that's always when Sopranos was peak TV. So, yeah, man, he killed it, and I'm sure they expanded that storyline in season 3 because of I thought he was really good. But yeah, I always wonder, shit, could I have ever gotten the part of Jackie Jr. and would I have been as good as him? I doubt it. I was a little chubby kid. He's like this big, strong, handsome dude. So, but hey, I got to work with Jamie Lynn years later. So
yeah, true.
It all worked out in the end.
It's funny. Speaking of that quickly, to touch on that, I love how in Entourage when she was in the show, I love how you guys referenced her too as Meadow Soprano, like breaking that fourth wall of like the reality. Oh yeah, it's a Meadow Soprano. Like it wasn't like she was playing a different character. She played herself, which I like.
Well, that was always with Entourage. A lot of people talk about the cameos and who's their favorite and what. So early on with the show, we couldn't get cameos. Anything you saw in like the first 2 seasons were Wahlberg's friends, like Jessica Alba, Scarlett Johansson. Those were like, hey, can you please come do this, please? And they said yes as like a favor to Mark, right? Then the show starts doing well. But also, and I credit Jamie for this too, once people start, actors and whatever, musicians, athletes start realizing like, hey, we're not trying to like make you look bad. We're not making fun of you. If you want to make fun of yourself, we're here. Like you want to do something different. So like with Jamie, our initial storyline was kind of ridiculous. Like we sit next to each other on a plane. She does something to me. Like, she's playing this alternate universe version of herself and like fearlessly, like committed to it. And same thing with her. I don't think Doug Ellen had it in his mind. Like, hey, next season, I'm going to make you two like love interests for a whole year. I just think she came in, killed it, was hilarious. And it's like, let's keep doing this. And as always, when Entourage worked is when people came on knowing, even like Matt Damon came on and played this ridiculous version of himself.
Oh my God. I'll never forget that scene. Well, remember that scene?
It's hilarious.
He's like, it's Matt Damon. He's like, where's the check, Vince?
Where's the check, Vince? I can't believe I'm calling you.
I have an Academy Award. I'm calling you back again and again and again.
It's really what made Entourage unique. No show's ever done that with that level of cameos. And I don't know if any show ever will.
No, that's true. And most people, do they play themselves? Like, what about Bob Saget and things like that?
Oh my God.
So again, Bob came on early. Bob was in season 2, I think. Maybe season 3. Maybe season 2.
Yeah.
And at this point, Bob was doing really well. Like, he's always done really well, but he's like on the road as a comic. And if you ever, not many people who like, I grew up on Bob Saget watching Full House and America's Funniest Home Videos, right? I didn't know he had this whole stand-up career where he was not Danny Tanner or the host of AFV. He said some shit in his stand-up. And Doug Ellen knew that. So he wrote this version of Bob. I'm not saying it really who Bob was, but leaned into Bob's sense of humor more, which was a little dirtier. And man, I don't know if you guys curse on this, you would bleep it out, but you know how many people still come up to me and say that, like you just got cock blocked by Bob Saget. It's like one of the more famous lines. He came on early and just went for it and played this ridiculous version of himself. I think that's my favorite cameo is Bob.
R.I.P. Legend.
Sound
All right, yeah. I mean, gosh, you know,
Oh my
that's
God.
still not real to me. I still think
He's here. I
one day
know.
I'm gonna look at my phone.
I almost forgot too for a second. I'm like, wait, he's not here. Yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna get an inappropriate text from him any day with some joke he's making. That's just, it's horrible. But yeah,
that's
he was
awesome.
phenomenal on the
What a
show.
what a legend. How about for yourself though, Jerry? Because it was said that you're different from your character Turtle. How
Yeah.
how different are you guys? Like what are some of the main differences, or how would you do a situation different, you know?
So, the differences with all of us in the character, and again, it's not like we had to do all this like character research like Daniel Day-Lewis. We're not playing Abraham Lincoln, It's not like we got to go deep. But for me, I'm a little more reserved. I'm not gonna say I'm shy, but I definitely think a lot more before I speak, especially with some of the earlier Turtle stuff. The stuff with women, I just like I not that I was, I always had girlfriends. I was always in relationships. I wasn't like running around town trying to score, air quotes for everybody who's just audio only. Air quote. I wasn't trying to score every single night, but in a funny way, it was nice to play this guy who knew he wasn't the best looking dude in the room, but just didn't care, just let it fly. I always put a little bit of one of my best friends who I grew up with, who passed away at a very young age. It's not so much that I based the character on him because he wasn't like that, but my friend Sal, rest in peace again, who I grew up with in Brooklyn, he just was like the life of the party. He just liked to have fun and laugh. And even if he said something that might be offensive, you let it go because he's just kidding. Like to me, his line, like we were really little. He was the kid who would throw the party at his house, right? Parents went away, let's have a party. And he would get in trouble. He would get punished or whatever. And he would just always say, look, as long as we have fun, it's worth it. Right. So like that was like the mentality of these guys. Look, Kevin Dillon is very, very different from Johnny Drama. Are there similarities? Sure. Kevin's brother was giant movie star when he was a kid. He was just telling me about growing up in like Westchester. Like he would, guys would show up looking to start trouble because they were jealous of Matt, and Matt was off shooting some movie. So they're like, hey, kid, you're the next one. We're waiting outside for you, Kevin. Come out here, So there's definitely overlap, but Kevin is so different. Connolly, again, very different. Now, Connolly has been acting since he was like 9 years old. He was in Rocky V when he was like 12.
I didn't know that until recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
So
stole Stallone's kid's jacket. Chicky. I think his name was Chicky Grabowski or
yeah,
something.
Mike, remember
like
those
that.
kids that stole Stallone's son's jacket?
The
And remember he
leather
was fighting
jacket.
them?
No way.
Remember?
I gotta watch
The
that
ginger
back.
That's
kid.
Kevin Connolly.
Oh
I
my
doesn't.
God.
Yeah.
So-
Wow.
What Connolly brought to the table, which it's interesting because the E character was learning Hollywood on the fly, right? He was spinning pizzas back in New York and just moved out. But Connolly,
He
he's
knew
been
it.
doing this for life. He knows, he's seen it all. So he had an interesting adjustment to make where he had to play it like he kind of didn't know what he was doing with E a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And, and then Adrian, and Doug Ellen and Steve Levinson will always say Vince was the hardest part to cast, because who's a movie star or who could play a movie star that's not already a movie star, right? That wants to take this job on an HBO show. And I think we didn't have Vince cast until the last minute. Steve Levinson, who was his manager at the time and my manager to this day, popped in a tape of like, you got to see this kid. Adrian's one of my clients. This was like our last shot. And just Adrian had the right eyes and just that right demeanor, which I don't know if Mark had this, but a lot of guys back then just had this breezy quality of like, everything's going to be all good. Everything's going to work out for us. Adrian does possess that effortless, like everything's going to be good, man. And if it's not, we just move back to Queens. Adrian has that inside him a little bit.
Honorable mention too. And again, I say this with all love. So if Kevin Connolly's watching this, just know that's all out of love. When you guys did Medellin, remember how Medellin became a movie? Like everyone hated it and shit.
Yeah.
But it was Eric. It was they framed it like it was Eric's fault.
Right.
In real life, Kevin Connolly directed God,
Right.
and I didn't receive well. So I just found it crazy how like there was that the real life the show kind of bled into the real life a bit. I don't know. I just found that interesting. It was just a little
Well,
thing I wanted to
this
mention.
is like where I think almost like Hollywood and sports overlap a little bit, where it's like
Yeah.
you could look at why a team doesn't succeed or a player doesn't succeed, and you could just flat out say like, "Oh, that movie wasn't good," or "That team sucks," or "That player sucks." And I get it, but there's so many things going on behind the scenes of why something's good or bad. Even if you look at, I think something that Entourage did really well was with the Vince character when he was kind of down on his luck and he had gotten fired from that Smoke Jumpers movie, right? Now, whether you think, that was always a funny joke, right? Like, is Vince actually a good actor? Because in the beginning of the show, he's like this movie star. Then Medellin comes out and it's like, well, maybe he sucks as an actor. Maybe that's true. But if you recall, like, we had this great Stellan Skarsgård, one of the best actors I've ever worked with. He's genius. He played the director. He was a lunatic. The character was a lunatic. So that movie, you could say, oh, that movie got shut down because the Vince character sucked. He couldn't act. Maybe part of that's true. But also the director was a fucking lunatic. So there's so many things that go into an athlete, an actor, a team, a movie from being, it is not just one person ever, 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 ever.
Yeah,
I'm
I
getting you
know.
some old head knowledge right now.
Yeah, you got a lot of stories, man. This is awesome.
No, it's awesome stuff.
The blessing and the curse too. I have a great memory. A great memory.
What's the curse of that? That's great.
Well, maybe you don't want to remember everything.
One thing I'm really curious about, because obviously me and Mike are both Italian American.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'm Italian Canadian. He's Italian American. But I'm also an actor as well. And I just wanted to know something because I don't know if it still happens to this day, but a lot of Italian Americans get shunned in Hollywood. I know it's like, for example, like let's look at Leonardo DiCaprio. They wanted him to change his name to Lenny Williams initially. I don't
Is
know
that
if you know
true?
about.
I've never heard that.
Yeah,
Because he had
they
like
didn't
too
want
much
it.
of an Italian
Yeah,
ethnic last name. So is that
yeah,
what it was?
and he didn't want to do that. But Lenny Williams, right? Now, Pacino as well. Let's just talk about that. He got snubbed so many times. Let's talk about The Godfather,
Right.
right? And I don't know if that was because it was just an Italian. I mean, it did win a lot of Oscars, but him specifically, he got robbed, and he got robbed so many times. I don't know if there's a correlation between Italian American actors in Hollywood getting snubbed, or I don't know what your thoughts on that. But yeah, I just thought that's interesting because I noticed it a lot.
Yeah. I'll go back in time for a minute because when I first moved out to LA, and I moved out to LA, it was like the teen craze. It was like Dawson's Creek, Scream, all these like, they made it sound like they were grabbing kids at the mall, being like, you want to be a TV star? Come with us, right? Because it was this rut. And it all goes in like cycles, right? Some years it was like, oh, they're focusing on like 30 something stuff, So I went out there and you definitely did not want to be an Italian guy with a New York accent, only because that is all the only parts you will go out for. That's it. You will not get to see. It was 25 years ago. Yeah, you had to drop the accent. Yeah, Jerry Ferrara. I didn't change my name or anything. Jerry's pretty, but my grandfather was Celestino, which broke down to Jerry. So that's that origin. But Jerry Ferrara, like, yeah, it's Italian, but it's not hardcore. Like I threw that up there.
Oh, I see what you did there.
So, but that to me, I think I always looked at it more, it was less about being Italian and more about being from New York. You're right. Like, you hear that accent, you can't play like you're from LA. However, I did find myself going out early on for a lot of, mob related stuff. And it's funny though. I don't know if it's because I'm like short and I looked young and I'm not physically imposing. If you look at my career, I did do one movie called Brooklyn Rules. Terry Winter from The Sopranos wrote it. Michael Correnti directed it. It was like Brooklyn story, Italian American mob stuff. I never get those parts. I auditioned for Irishman. I just auditioned for the De Niro one where he's playing like
Alto Night.
Vincent. Yeah, I've auditioned for all of those movies. Never seen me in one, right? So it's weird. Yes, I think, but I never I never get cast in the like amazing mob violent film stuff like that. So I don't know. I think nowadays it's all so different. I really don't think because I don't think you're now limited to like, oh, you're a New York Italian, so that's all you could do. I really don't. I think if you get lazy and don't try to break out of certain molds that people might think you're like, you guys are all, Italian, American, Italian, Canadian, but like that's a very small part of your story.
You're right.
So, and you guys are great at amplifying the Italian part of your story with this show. But I'm sure you're doing I didn't know you were an actor. So we could talk about that anytime. I could tell by the background. You got Back to the Future. You got stuff like I can tell you're a movie buff.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of your story,
Yeah,
so
well,
it's just easier.
I have on Instagram. I love to pick your brain about the acting stuff on a separate thing. If that's okay. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, look, I will say, I hope I could give you some words of wisdom. I don't know what it would be like for a young person these days starting off wanting to act. It was always a hard career to give advice. I've been asked for advice a lot of the time. I'm kind of like, hey, I'm surprised I did it. So I don't have a blueprint for you. And there never was a blueprint.
Do you see
Go ahead, Mike.
Will Ferrell? He just put out something where like his advice that changed his life with acting. Do you hear about that yet or no?
No.
He was just saying, he said his dad gave him advice when he said he wanted to be a comedian and an actor. His dad gave him the advice of like, it's a lot of luck, so don't expect anything. And he said it was like, most people take it as bad advice, but he was like, when he said that, it took all the pressure off, and then I just went out and had fun, and it worked. So that was kind of cool. I thought,
right, because you really know you're not in control at all, right?
Yeah.
And I think by luck he probably meant timing.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's definitely a world where if I move to LA a year later and maybe I don't catch Entourage, like I'm still a waiter in a restaurant chasing my dreams. That's absolutely on the table. I was not some like, oh, for sure, this guy's gonna make it. I wasn't like a 6'4" super handsome guy. I'm not nearly as good as an actor as Daniel Day-Lewis or so. Yeah, it's more so timing. And back then, there really was like the blueprint was find yourself an agent somehow, get some auditions, and just go. You have to move to LA. That was like you had no choice. You could not be in Canada or New York. It was Sopranos, Sex and the City, Law and Order. That's it.
Yeah.
Now there's more stuff in New York than LA. But nowadays it's weird. I don't know how to give you advice. I would always say make sure you love it. That's what I've told people before, because of the rejection and the luck and the criticism. If you don't love it, it's designed to make you quit. It's designed to be like to make you say, why am I wasting my time doing this? But if you love it, if you would do it, if it only paid like 40 grand a year with some crappy health benefits, and if you would do it where fame doesn't come with it, then you'll be okay. But if you want to be famous and you think acting is that's what I mean. These days, you don't need acting to make you famous. There's a lot of other ways. Yep. But back in the day, some people looked at it like, I want to be famous. I want to be a star. Let me try acting. Everyone always told me I'm the most handsome or the funniest. These days now, there's, it's a lot easier to become famous than being an actor. That's actually a terrible business model. If you're looking for fame, it's horrible.
Yeah, true. You say Huck 2 on a street interview. Now you're
Huck 2.
But I would say to you, and we can talk about it off the air, but like if you love it, if it's something that you have to do, you'll be all right.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I do love it. So that's good. Yeah.
You'll be all right then. You'll be all right.
Goes with anything too, business or podcasting, I'm sure. You got to stick with it. It's not always rewarding every second, but you have to just keep grinding it out and do what you love. So
yeah, look, I go back to 2012 with podcasting, and it was really like a love of sports and stuff like that. But it was almost like a byproduct of being an actor, because I can't wake up tomorrow and say, hey, I want to act tomorrow. I don't have an acting job right now. Right? I'm not on the show. I did a movie in July in Nashville. That's over. So I can't wake up tomorrow and be like, I think I'm gonna move to act tomorrow. I can go do Shakespeare in the park by myself. I'm not gonna do that. But the cool thing with like podcasts and even a lot of great content on YouTube and social media is you could wake up tomorrow and no one can stop you. No one may listen, but you have a microphone, you have a good Wi-Fi connection, and you could build a whole business from there while still acting or chasing whatever else is that you do, But I can't wake up tomorrow and act. I have to wait for someone to tell me it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
I talk a lot. You see, when someone gets old, and they start yapping, that's when you know they're old. When they just
good.
have
I
like
just
all
wanna
these
be-
No, this is
stories.
great. This is
I
great,
want to be
man. Honestly,
respectful of
the
your
worst.
time too, because I could
Yeah,
probably
but honestly,
ask
the
you
worst.
about the video games and sports all day too. You know what I
Nah,
mean? So,
listen, you can let it fly, man. I'm here for you guys. I just hope the people listening are enjoying this talk.
No, man, this is great because the worst thing, and you have a podcast, is if you have someone on and they just give a one-word answer. Hey, how's it going? Good. Like that's
Yeah. I do a new sports podcast called Throwbacks with
yeah.
Matt Leinart, who, won the Heisman at USC, and he's the great. And my fear when we have guests, I'm an over preparer. I have notes everywhere because my fear is just, like you said, silence. I'm gonna be like, so that happened in the game. What'd you think? Be like, I didn't think much of it. And it's like, I don't know what else to ask this person. Yeah, that's a big fear. You ain't gonna get that with me.
Good. I'm glad.
what do you game though? What's your go-to game? I'm just curious.
So these days, as a father of a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old boy, the gaming is definitely a lot less.
Mhm.
I'm everything from, look, I love Madden and NCAA and the show and 2K, but then I love League of Legends, right?
Okay.
I loved Helldivers. When they re-released Halo, I was all at it. I used to be huge with Call of Duty, but it got similarly like sports. Like I aged out of Call of Duty. My hand-eye, I'm just not fast enough.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
have
hard.
it.
These kids
Doesn't work.
nowadays on Call of Duty are freaking crazy. I can't keep up even.
Yeah,
I'm just all sports
I
now,
don't
so.
have it. I was streaming on Twitch back in like 2011 because I loved it. 2012, and it was Overwatch was like the game for me back then. So I'll play anything. I just don't get to deep dive. I mean, I used to go on binges, man. That's how I became 200 pounds. Was just playing Call of Duty, smoking weed, and eating.
And those chat rooms are I remember when those chat rooms were pretty
Yeah,
intense too.
yeah. You get cursed out by an 11-year-old kid.
Yeah, I know where you live. It's like what the what?
So yeah,
true.
but these days I'll sneak in and an hour here, an hour there. I'm trying to hold off with the kids, not showing them. We'll play a little Mario Kart, but I'm trying to like hold off on that because I know them. Once they see it, they're in. So I'm
Yeah,
just gonna hold off as long as I can.
that's cool, man.
Yeah, man. I love video games. I used to
No,
dream about the day where it's like, wouldn't it be cool if I can play, but I'm at home and my friend Joey from up the street is at his house, but we could still play when we're home. I used to dream about online gaming
yeah,
back when we were playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out on Nintendo.
That's funny.
yeah, I feel you. No, I'm the same way though. I need to game a little bit, man, just from like
What do you play?
the show mainly, but all the sports games,
Oh,
FIFA,
the show.
Madden.
All right. Well, you
Yeah,
might get an invite. You PlayStation or Xbox?
Xbox. How about you, PlayStation?
Right. Well, the show tipped me off to that. Okay.
I
We can
I
play.
I I, I just play
Yeah, true.
I play on my phone FC Mobile. I play
Yep.
Nintendo Switch.
Switch is fun.
Yeah, but
Switch
I
is
have
fun.
Batman, like I have the Arkham Knight game on my Switch. It's pretty bad.
Oh, is it good on the Switch? Yeah.
It glitches a bit, but it's
Right.
pretty good. Like yeah, it's really good actually, surprisingly.
Yeah,
It's
I
when you
haven't
get
played
the
Arkham.
Batmobile, it glitches a bit.
I just got Spider-Man 2 on I hadn't bought and like a PS5 or the new Xbox. I was always Xbox, and then I got really into PC gaming. I got this great rig I'm looking at right now.
Oh, nice.
I got into like League of Legends, mouse and keyboard, but now I finally, because of NCAA, like let me get a PS5, and now I got Spider-Man 2. But my kids love Spider-Man, so I'm tempted if I should like just show them a little bit of it.
Yeah,
But it's going to be over. I'm telling you, I'm going to show them that, and they're going to grab that controller, and they're gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I started playing when I was like 5 years old. I remember playing Call of Duty when I was like five or six. So yeah.
You
That'd be cool.
probably cursed me out in the chat room. I was one of the first to get a gold cross back on Modern Warfare
Yeah.
too. That was my game, man.
My
50
God.
cal, whoo, on shipment, the best.
Love it, man.
It's good stuff, Paisans.
Yeah, all right,
Yeah,
let's
I
go. Yeah,
appreciate it.
no, well,
Yeah, thanks
Yeah,
so much for
thanks so
wearing the
much, Jerry.
merch
Honest,
too.
you better.
Appreciate it, man. And yeah, just coming on, dude. We're like
My
we said, we're
pleasure. You
big
guys,
fans.
yeah, you guys have built something really cool. You're telling stories, which is always a good thing. So, yeah, just hit me up anytime you wanna. We could even do quicker things. Like you got a specific topic. I like when we get specific.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We'd love to have you back on again. We're gonna stay in touch with you too. It's good that when we have people on, we get people on that we and this is Mike's the owner of the whole brand. Like this is his whole thing, and it's he's done such a great job with it. And
Thanks, man.
his main goal is that when we talk to people, stay in touch with them, support what they're doing because you're obviously
Yeah,
you're still doing cool things to this day, and we're big fans, and we want to continue to stay in touch. So yeah, I really
great.
appreciate that.
Dope talk, fellas.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Well, have
Thanks
a
a
good
All
lot,
right.
rest
man.
of your day,
You
man.
too. See you later.
Yep. Have